Okay, Bill Neri, we have an issue with YouTube. Um, we're getting a daily limit exceeded.
Oh,
We said at midnight. Um, I'll call IT, but are you okay going without this live on YouTube?
yes, we can go ahead.
And you are good to go, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Councilor Neri. Thank you, Brian, for getting this set up, or City of Meridian. I want to welcome everybody. This is the Historic Preservation Commission meeting taking place on May 28th at 4:30 p.m. We're going to do roll call attendance. Blaine Johnson, not here. Don Kronk, not here. Josh Everts, I am in fact here. Jody Alt,
Present.
JC Neri,
Present.
the man, Brian Fitzgerald,
Present.
Donna Lesignan, not here, and Councilwoman Jessica Perot. All right, item number 2, adoption of the agenda.
Mr. President,
Ms. Neri,
I move we adopt the agenda as published.
excellent. Do I have a
I'll
second?
second that.
Thank you. I've got a motion to adopt the agenda from Councilman Neri and a second by Councilman Alt. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it passes. Item number 3, approval of minutes from the April 23rd, 2020 regular meeting.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I did have one amendment and then we can adopt after. Just the location of the meeting. We should note that it was a Zoom meeting and it didn't take place at City Hall. But with that one amendment, I would move that we adopt the minutes as presented.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Jody. I've got a motion to approve the minutes from April 23rd with an adjustment that the location was a Zoom meeting from Councilman Neri, second by Councilwoman Alt. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, we're good to go.
Mr.
on
Vice
the-
President,
Yeah,
I can also let you know, let the commissioners know. So that static heading on the agendas are set in by Novus, so we cannot adjust them. So the
Okay.
clerk's office has been adjusting on the back end, showing where the meeting is located. And now our future meetings, and this one just didn't get caught for the commissions, but all of our meetings now list an agenda item as the Zoom link to the meeting so that it's clear where it's being available. So that's why it reads that way. So,
okay.
just so you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for acknowledging that I'm actually a vice president, not a president, even though JC's been trying to get me promoted for years. But
Sorry about that.
With
Too
all
much,
the
too
rights and
much.
privileges thereof, sir.
Item number 4, approval of the monthly financial statement for the month of April 2020.
Mr. Vice President, if there were no corrections, I would move that we adopt or approve the monthly financial statement.
I'll second that.
And once again, I got a fantastic motion to approve the monthly financial statement as stated for the month of April 2020 by Councilwoman Neri, seconded by Councilwoman Alt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? All right. New business, item 5A, the future social media effort.
Right. Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, just to establish where we're coming from on this agenda item, last month, we had a short discussion about it, and we received clarification through the month, especially as we've gone through the Preservation Month posting. But just as in summation of everything that we've learned that the city would prefer us to join with them on their social media pages for the time being as we build and grow our audiences. And if we gather a large enough following, then they'll help us transition to pages of our own. With that said, we can post on the city pages anytime that we want. The only recommendation is that we create a schedule and that one of the commissioners manages that schedule. The schedule will include photographs, captions, and dates of posting, and then we are welcome to post on the city pages. Like I said, a commissioner is recommended to take that responsibility. Then I will be doing the posting on social media pages. So I will be working with that social media manager.
Any inputs, thoughts?
Mr. Vice President.
Councilman Neri.
This is a better resolution than actually I thought we had kind of walked into. So I'm comfortable with it. My only hesitation with it is that we have those acting and existing pages, and Meridian History, like the Historical Society, has maintained somewhat of an online, for whoever follows them, right, for probably 6 years. And so my only concern would be making sure that those followers get migrated over, and that those pages go away so that there isn't any confusion. If we were to get enough followers, at what point do we know that it's time to move off and make our own? Like, does the Parks Commission not have a social media, or Arts Commission not have social media? How is that working? Like, when's the trigger? Is it 100 likes, or what does that look like?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mr. Vice President and Commissioner, I don't know exactly what that bar is that we have to meet. I know that some other organizations within the city, like Parks and Rec and the Arts Commission, have their own pages because they have so much content and a strong following. And I know the Parks and Rec pages have their own staff member that manages that full time. The Arts Commission is also under my umbrella. However, it hasn't been very active recently. So I don't know what that bar is, but I can certainly ask Shandy, and she can maybe give us a guidance of maybe goals of numbers, or however that would be based, of when we can know that we have enough underneath us to propel us into our own pages again.
Yeah, Mr. Vice President.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the focus of the communications manager really is, again, having content that is timely and active. So when Hillary was here, she pretty much was the person doing the arts page. The commissioners don't actively do that. So, and then on Parks, as Audrey said, I mean, they have more than one staff person that manages that content. So that's the problem or concern you have when you have volunteer commissions, is everybody else has a job and they don't necessarily have the time to make it active and busy. And so that's why linking it through the city is a little bit more viable for it to be useful and there. So I think that's a great conversation with Shandy on kind of where do we go? How can we get there? And I think get kind of that roadmap on how to get there for this commission. And it may simply be just saying someone's got to be dedicated to doing this an hour a day or 4 hours a week or whatever that it is, to make sure it's current. Because you would notice sometimes that Meridian History page, it was driven by Hillary's own workload. So there's times where it was super active, other times there was no content at all for weeks.
Yeah.
Mr. Vice President.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, no, you go ahead.
No, you jump in.
So I'm okay, like I can volunteer to do that, to create essentially a month calendar worth of content. So at work now, I do a month at a time. I use Hootsuite. So I log in like the last week of the month and I schedule 30 days worth of content all at one time. I block out 4 hours of my day and I just hit it all. And then I look at the analytics based on when people are on our page and actually liking, following, and interacting with us. And then I adjust postings to those hours. So back when I was at the city, now this has been 4 years, we were really active on Tuesday mornings at 10 a.m. For whatever reason, the Meridian City page got a lot of likes and hits during that time. So that would be when I would have scheduled content kind of based around when we were having that following. So I mean, in my mind, it's history. And so it's easy to create pages or, photos, information based on, we have calendars that have facts every single day of the month. There's plenty of content. So it's just like, what's too much? Is one post a week enough, or should we be looking at Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 10 a.m.? Or you know what I'm saying? I think maybe some analytics would be helpful to guide that conversation. And how much is too much for HPC to be posting. You know, I mean, I can see us using the couple of hashtags that we've identified, which should, for those that are watching, like Twitter analytics, those types of things, or TweetDeck, it should pull in the followers of those hashtags, right? People that are for what's trending. And that should help grow, but I don't want to be hitting an audience that's not there.
Mhm.
So a couple thoughts here. Let's start with the our fine folks that are currently following the Historical Society. I would highly recommend that we develop a transition post that they can post to their community. Put a time frame on it of 1 week. You know, that we're focusing our history messaging as a commission, as an organization, to the many more followers that are on the city of Meridian. Like I would argue where we're at as an organization right now, our best audience is to hit the people that are already on the Meridian social media sites. Like if they're willing to have our stuff there, JC, to your point, if we can organize our Hootsuite efforts where we're putting out great content, even if it is only 2-3 days a week, I think that's a great place to start, and then look at the metrics. But if we can be utilizing the many thousands more followers that are part of the city of Meridian that might get exposed to us, that's much better than us trying to build our own audience, where we're going to, just depending on people's work level, if Audrey's able to do things, or if you and I have got time, JC, to put together some clever stuff, like let's take advantage of there. But I think we need to do a transition plan that says, hey, here's the post. It's going to be repeated like every other day for a week. And then this is the drop dead. And if the links are there to go like the Facebook pages, to like the Instagram accounts, Twitter, whatever that we're going to utilize at the city, that's the best that we can do. But I do think that we then kind of shut that off. I would like to, I think it would be good. There's a lot of content that's up there right now. So I think we don't have to, I think when you close a Facebook page, like you could make it not public. Like I think we probably want to not delete it, but just hold it there in case we just want to copy and paste and rip some stuff as part of your efforts, JC. I think making sure you've got access to that. So that's kind of one issue. I think the other issue of JC, if you feel like you've got the skill and the time, one of the things that I've got in my office, the same guy that's been working on our graphics and brochure and logos and everything, Bryce has got hours so that we, volunteer as part of this commission. So if there are some creative things that we would like to, do with the imaging, if you want some watermarks that are really clever that you can start throwing on our photos so that they're very much branded, that might be something we want to look at. But yeah, if you're willing to take that on, start with, a schedule of, a couple posts a week and work with, Audrey to make that happen. I think that's a good way forward and not worry about having our own stuff right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mr. Vice President?
Yes.
I have a couple of comments. First of all, JC, I would be happy to help you with that, pulling things together. I have no problem with helping you with that. And secondly, my concern is that I struggled to find what we put out through the city of Meridian for Preservation Month. There were a lot of things that were done on that 24-hour loop, and that was it. And so I'm concerned about that aspect of it, that are we really getting our stuff out there and getting it seen?
We are competing. Yeah, Commissioner All, I appreciate that when we are on the Meridian main page, we are competing with everybody. And certainly in this kind of COVID-19 world, that's our primary communication platform as a city. So we're getting buried with, 10 infrastructure updates and 15 of this and 20 of this. And so the couple posts that we might make a week are, potentially not getting the visibility. Any thoughts on that?
I think that, well, Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, I think those are really valid points. And I think that transitioning to our own pages is a very realistic thing that could happen in the next couple weeks, months, I don't know how long. But the person who can answer these questions the best probably would be Shandy. And so I recommend that those who are willing to, who are going to be the social media manager or managers, we can make the decision of who those people are, and then we can kind of move out of this meeting into a meeting with Shandy, and we can set that up, and Shandy can give us the goals that we need to reach and recommendations for the days and times and how often those posts are. She's the one who manages the page ultimately, and so she can give guidance on that as we create our plan, and then we'll be able to move forward.
So let's take that as an action then. So Jody, you and JC will get together with Shandy and Audrey and come up with a plan. Maybe a 1 month, 3 month, 6 month kind of, here's going to be our approach. This is going to be our schedule. If we think we can get that meeting done before our next meeting, maybe you guys come back and present, here's our plan now that we've got some visibility from Shandy, and I would be interested, since Arts does have their own page, because I appreciate Jody's comments that we, if there's an opportunity for us to have something that people can individually like, where we might get a little bit more visibility and get our message in a more concentrated way that's out, I would just like to know what that path looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I'm happy to tag team that with Jody. Audrey, can you take the lead and set that meeting up? Only because it was very difficult for me to get in touch with Shandy, and I know that things are odd because of this virtual world, but social media moves faster than a 7-day response time. And I mean that in a kind way. I know that we're under a weird circumstance, but you might have better FaceTime than I will. You can set that up. That would be rad. And then I think, Josh, to your point, anything that we can do to take our historic images and brand them with our watermark or our logo, I think would be fantastic. So we can identify those images and maybe just get you like a stack worth, right? And let you guys do something fun with them. Yep. And the other thought that I had, and I will address this with Shandy, but I very much hear what Jody is saying about making sure our posts don't just get lost in a stream. And maybe it's as simple as working more comprehensively, thinking about the city's social media as an entire unit. And maybe we designate, maybe it's Tuesday afternoons, nothing gets posted after 12 p.m. besides HPC's content, right? So that it's not just buried in there, and try to look at, and I assume she has a social media calendar for the whole month. So how do we block things out so that the messaging doesn't just get lost?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, agreed. No, JC, great point. And certainly with those images, if you give me a library of, here's 100 images, we'll just batch those. I'm thinking we put them in a frame. We get a watermark logo on there. That way, if anybody's copying and pasting those images for their own use, we're maintaining all that, not copyrights, but really branding and association. That was something that came from our commission.
Yeah. Do you have access to that old Dropbox file that had all those? I'm going to try to find it. Hillary worked at one point to download everything, like all those photos that we'd scanned in from the city drive to Dropbox, so that commissioners would have access to those. And I think it's still alive. So I will try to revive that. And maybe it's as simple as just sharing that link with you. So I'll do a little bit of research and make sure that, Jody, you have access to all of those too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice President and Commissioner Neri, if the Dropbox doesn't end up being live, I got permission to create the Gmail account for the purpose of sharing files. Whether that's like Google spreadsheets for, creating this calendar, or a folder for all those pictures. So that could be helpful if the Dropbox doesn't exist anymore.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any saved rounds? Anything that? Okay. New business 5B, reallocation of Shippo grant money.
Right. So, Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, I got an email from Pete Larange, who is part of Shippo. And he asked me about our grant. And if you may remember, we were awarded $2,000 from Shippo for our National Historic Registry project. And then we were awarded $700 to send one commissioner to the NAPC conference. However, that conference has gone virtual, and instead of costing $700, it only costs $100. And so Mr. Laurent wanted to know how we wanted to reallocate that $700. And our options currently are to readjust that and send 7 commissioners to the NAPC conference, or we could send 2 or 3 commissioners, or even just 1 commissioner, and use the rest of those funds for our National Historic Registry project.
Comments? Thank you, Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Vice President.
Yes.
I support any of these. I personally would like to go to the conference if we're going to do something with what we learn. If we go and we spend the money and then it is in a way that is tangible for us that we can implement, I'm super excited to do that. So, and I don't know how much, of their schedule they're putting out in place, but we've gone to conferences in the past and it's so national level that none of it applies for us. And it's great, like information, but if we're talking, we only have a small budget. I want to make sure it's useful. So I would support that as an option if we think the agenda actually applies to us. Otherwise, using the funds to get some of these registry projects or even some of the whole photography money, I don't know if that's too far outside of the scope.
Mm-hmm.
I would support that.
Mr. Vice President, I forgot to mention one thing, that we have already built into our budget $580 for conferences. And so we also have that in our budget already. I'm trying to remember that I'm looking up the information for the NAPC conference.
What are the dates on that?
I'm looking that up right now.
I guess let me ask a quick question while you look that up. What other commissioners would be interested in making the time available, given that the dates work, for attending that?
I would.
Awesome. I know Blaine will. JC, I've got your vote. Brian, is that something that you would be interested in participating in, or feel like you might have the time?
What exactly is it?
JC, you want to explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. And Brian, I can shoot you an email that has more content on it, but NAPC is the National Alliance of Preservation Commissions, I believe. Yes, it is. And the content will change year by year, but generally they focus on revitalizing main streets, how to bring new programs into local history kind of for a new generation. So the last time that I went to one of these conferences, it was down in Savannah, and it was really heavy on focusing really on the main street and how you get people into your main street spending money, and how you redevelop it, all while sort of maintaining the historic value of the property. So it's just going to be an educational piece. It looks like it's July 22nd to the 26th. So it might be kind of interesting to see too for you, if you could get some credit for school. I know it's summertime, but it will probably be, I would bet, 8-hour days, and that's 4 days worth of stuff. I'm looking at their website right now, and Brian, it's just napcommissions.org.
So here's what I'd like to offer. The fact that we've got $580 for conferences already in our budget, and there's probably not going to be conferences that are going to be going off this year. I think we should be aggressive that if commissioner, I'm actually gone that week, so I can't be there, but if there's opportunities for us to do that, if it's $100 a person, it looks like, if there were 5 of us, we could almost expend 400 of that budget plus the 100 coming from the Shippo grant and be able to cover all those people wanting to participate. I'm with you, JC. Like, I think our goal should be to go to that and try to come back with an initiative, you know, something that we can sink our teeth into, and add some value to the commission by attending that. With that being said, I'd be very open to ideas for that other $500. I do think having that, you know, I don't know how big of a stretch it is, to have, you know, be able to use that for some of our photography, video, virtual kind of stuff. But that's been such a great asset to have, especially with everything that's going on, where people have been quarantined and not getting out. I think seeing pictures and images and being able to virtually tour things, like, I think that'd be a great use of the money. Audrey, do you think that would be outside of the scope?
Mr. Vice President, no, I think that's a great idea. Later in the agenda, we're also going to be talking about the walking tour panel and the brochures and the virtual tours. And the budget is going to come up a lot in those items as well. Just looking at the budget, we are going to have to do some rearranging, I think. So this $580, I think, would be great to use for the NAPC conference. And then I would recommend using the other $700 to go for the tag project.
Okay.
We're going to be a little tight on our budget this year, I think. So
Good. Bill, you're muted. Come on now.
So, Mr. Vice President,
yes.
And again, I don't, and Audrey would know better than the specifics of the grant, and whether it can be used for anything other than the conferences. But again, to remind the commission, the budgets that are set out on your budget, like training, supplies, memberships, are really tagged by finance. They're not required that you can only spend $580 in training. You only have that amount of money to use for the things directed. They'd like to stay within those as much as possible, but if you use $600 into training, it just has to come out of the other things. So it's nothing that you're hard line fixed to, that you have to only use it in that one spot. So you do have a lot of flexibility to move around if you need to.
That's good to know.
yes.
So let's do two things then on this item specifically. Let's just confirm with Shippo, Audrey, that we can.
Mr. Vice President, it is confirmed. I did ask.
Oh, good. Perfect.
Just to confirm, like, we can use that $700 for our historical registry project, and he said that's fine.
Perfect. All right. So we're good to go. So I think that with those dates being set, if we could just get confirmation from the commissioners that would like to attend, looks like Jody and JC, potentially Brian, I think it'd be great for you as well if you've got that time available. I got to believe there's a way to get some education credit. I'm happy, Blaine's happy to write some letters to that effect, to get you some some love there. But I think it would be of great value and be a lot of fun. And then we'll tackle the rest of this. So
sounds like a really neat experience.
Yeah, for sure, Brian. Anything else on this topic that we got to cover? Awesome. All right. Item 6, old business. 6A, walking tour panel replacement.
Okay, Mr. Vice President and Commissioners. So I got all the information from Trademark Design, and I also walked around and took pictures of the panels that Kelsey is originally mentioned, just so we can see what the current condition of it is looking like. So the quote from Trademark Design, they confirmed that the total cost of this project would be $2,114. In looking at the budget as a whole, I am going to jump ahead really quickly to the brochures. The brochures, 1,000 of the brochures cost $2,448, and I believe we only have room in our budget for one or the other. I did a bunch of configurations, and we can pull money from the printing and promotional budget line, which is $1,000, and some of the leftover money that will be in our consulting photography budget line. And between the two of those, we can scrape up about $2,700, which would cover either the panels or the brochures. Other options that I considered is that we could order not as glossy of brochures and maybe get that price to come down a little bit. Then we could use, if we can get that price to come down a little bit, then we can adjust our budget and use the continuing education budget line or the student initiative budget line to supplement that. But at the current, just what the brochures currently are and what the panels currently are, we only have room in the budget for one.
Discussions.
Mr. President,
Commissioner Neri.
I know I'm always the chatty one, sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm wondering, Audrey, those prices, was that, like the panels are designed, so is that how much it costs for trademark just to reprint that? Because can we get like an estimate from modern printers to do the same thing?
Mr. Vice President, Commissioner Neri, certainly. All I did was go back to the same companies that we had used originally and request what would it cost to do the exact same thing that we did last time. And those were the estimates that I received. We can gather bids from other companies to see if there are better prices out there and see what else we can come up with.
I just have a really hard time thinking that panel, there's two of them, that they cost $1,100 each in paper. It's printed on paper. So
the outdoor panels?
Yeah.
Those are, I believe there's some type of metal, and there's 4 panels, and there's some type of metal that is put onto the signpost. You can see I attached pictures of the faded panels, and so you can see there's 4 of them. Some are in better condition than others, but they're like stapled on there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so it is something more than paper.
It's just so weird to me that it's so faded.
Yeah. Where some are in better condition than others, maybe if there's a little extra money, could you get away with just replacing some this year and replacing the others next year with more budget?
Yeah. We definitely could. That's definitely an option.
The ones that are like pink drive me crazy every time I drive by. But the less pink ones bother me less.
What are we down to, Audrey, right now in our counts for the walking tour brochures?
3 total. I found, Mr. Vice President, I found 3 brochures. After going into storage and going through all of Hillary's old files, I found 3 brochures. And I checked in our, at our posts outside, and they're both empty, the containers.
So here's what I would recommend we do. I think it's appropriate to, I think that modern printers could be a good resource. I'm also wondering if we could go to Signs Now. I know they've done some printing. I know I've used them on some big banners. Like, this isn't rocket science. And I think it would be a really great data point if we got a quote. You can send them the pictures, or they can go physically look at it and get some other quotes. And maybe even, I mean, there might be a material that we don't know about that holds up better under UV light, that, you know, would last a little bit longer, that could even be cheaper. We just don't know. But I think we should get some more data because they do look, the pink is terrible. And man, I don't want to be the one that has to decide between the walking brochure and doing these panels, because they're both really, really important. So if we saw that there was $800 in savings on the panels, and we thought that, you know, we could do with 250 fewer brochures, but be able to do them both, I think that would be a really wise thing to look into. So if we could get some quotes between now and our next meeting, and just and punt this until next time, I think that would be that'd be strategic.
Okay. Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, talking about the brochures. Well, Mr. Vice President, would you want to go to the next agenda item officially before I start talking about the brochures more in depth?
I would be honored to take our fine commission to old business item B, historic walking tour brochures. Continue, Audrey.
Okay, Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, I can certainly ask around not just about the panels, but also these brochures. And in looking at the brochures, they're very, very nice, and they look great. They have glossy pages. Is the commission interested in looking at what the cost would be to do 500 of these really nice booklets, and then 500 of maybe more papery, not as glossy Z folders, where it kind of unfolds like a map, just to look at the different options of formatting and things that might cost less. That way we can perhaps order some of our really nice brochures, but also supplement them with some more papery, less glossy ones. And perhaps we could use those less glossy ones for the third grade tours, and keep the glossy, very nice brochures for the posts outside or something like that.
I think any data that we have for our next meeting would be good. I think we should explore any and all options. Like we are fiduciaries for this money. And I think it's appropriate in a year where we've got to, you know, replace, you know, some permanent signs. When was the first time that we did the tour panels? What year was that?
The beginning of 2018.
Yeah. So if this is something that's going to happen every couple of years, you know, I think it's okay to look at other options by which we might save some money in those years. We need to get those looking good.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, it was also suggested to me, since HPC falls under the Parks and Rec umbrella, the Parks and Rec department, I get to share a lot of resources with the Parks and Rec Commission, and they have a life cycle replacement schedule. And I can start adding these to our life cycle replacement schedule, so we know when big costs like this, I mean big costs meaning more than several thousand dollars, a couple $1,000s, where we can start adding them to our budget from the beginning of the year.
Oh, good.
So that would cover a lot of our costs. We just need to know, you know, a year in advance that a project would be upcoming. So I'm also planning on adding these to our life cycle schedule so that we know when these things will be coming up.
I like that. Any other comments? Any other commissioners want to chime in on that as an approach? So we will be getting some quotes from Signs Now, some other options for printing. Certainly from an artwork standpoint, like my guy can do any artwork changes that need to be made. I'm sure these files are available. So there wouldn't be any cost to the commission for doing any updates to that. And then we'll look at some alternate printing costs with some different media items for next month. Look at us. Mm-hmm. All right, item 6C, old business, the Hull Film Virtual Tour proposal.
Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, I attached home film proposals. It's close to the same proposal that Brandon introduced to us last meeting, just removing the initial point and create the 2 extra sites that Brandon had added. The total cost would be $4,700. And the main purpose of this proposal is to approve the locations and photographs numbers that he suggested. And once we get that approval, I know Emily from legal is already working on an agreement with Brandon so that that can be finally approved and Brandon can move forward with this project as proposed.
Comments, inputs. And which budget line, Audrey, are we taking that out of in our, I don't have that sitting in front of me.
Yes, so Mr. Vice President, this would come out of the budget for consulting and photography services.
Okay.
That budget line covers both our virtual tours and our historic registry project.
And we feel like between funds and everything that this 4,700 is absorbable inside of that?
Yes, so given we will pay for half, or not quite half, but this fiscal year, TAG will invoice us for around $1,500. Brandon will invoice us for $4,700, and that will leave $1,700 left over that we can use for brochures or panels.
I guess first, commissioners, any questions about the proposal? Any of the specifics in there?
No, I think as usual, Brandon's done a really comprehensive job. It's pretty clear.
All right, so any motions?
I motion that we get more money.
Yes, make that happen. Bill, you're in charge.
Yeah, I'm wondering about one other thing that I just thought about budget-wise. With these nominations, we haven't talked about a budget for the sign we have to buy that goes in front of the property to mark them for the tour, which is one additional expenditure that I just thought about with all of this. It would be next fiscal year, but there's going to be a cost associated with those podium signs. So are you just right now, do you just need a motion to just approve this estimate and his proposal?
Yes, that's my understanding, Audrey.
Yes, next month, Mr. Vice President, Commissioners, next month we'll have the actual contract that will need a signature and a formal motion. So this was just to, again, confirm these locations and numbers are good.
Yeah, they look really good to me.
Mr. Vice President,
Yes, Commissioner Alt.
I move that we move forward with this project.
That's what I like to hear. Is that a motion? I love it. Yeah. So we'll do a formal motion just because I got Steven's rules. Well, a formal motion will be next month when we actually have the contract, and it'll be for the specific dollars and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Do we know how much those monuments are, Jody? Or I'm sorry, JC?
No, I don't, Mr. Vice President. The last time that we put one in was when we nominated, I think the last property that we nominated was the Compton House. We did trademark for them too, but that was probably back in 2008. And the companies in the area that were doing this type of work there was just less of them. And so I think we established a really amazing relationship and got great service. So we kept going back. But the area is bigger than it used to be, and there's different materials. And so I think we might be able to get some more competitive offers or just some bids on that. Every single property that's on the registry has one, and it has the old Meridian Heritage logo, which we would probably want to do our new logo.
Yeah.
I don't even know. I would assume somebody in finance may have those invoices, but it very likely could have been routed through the Historical Society, and they might have paid for it. It predates me.
Got it. So I think probably we before our next meeting, Audrey, if we could scour and find out how much those monuments were, just so we've got some data points, since it looks like we're going to be making larger financial decisions at the next meeting. Just so we have that in our hip pocket as we look at all these things.
Yes.
Those monuments are important.
Mr. Vice President, just to confirm, this is for the Speedway, right? Not the virtual tours, but the,
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, I can try to track that down.
I can email Lila too and see if she might just remember. Sometimes she remembers things like that and could tell us exactly and how they did it.
Okay. All righty. Anything else on the whole film for next month? Shake? No. Item 7, reports 7A Meridian Speedway National Registry update.
Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, this is just a small update to let you know that I received TAG's formal proposal yesterday, and that the Finance Purchasing Department is currently working on a formal agreement with TAG, including the timeline and the invoice deadlines, things like that. That will all come back to the commission next month in a formal agreement that will need a formal motion and approval.
Any comments?
Thank you.
Awesome. Last item, 7A or 7B Preservation Month Post Report.
Yes. Mr. Vice President and Commissioners, we are still technically in preservation, and so I have still been posting some. Last week, I feel that the Preservation Month posts have gone really well. Thank you so much to JC who wrote the captions, and thank you to the commissioners who made the videos, and thank you to Shandy who kind of made those frames for us for the Instagram stories. I've posted them every weekday. Didn't get last weekend, but I am planning on continuing to post through this weekend to the end of the month, all the videos that the commissioners made. And as far as I can tell, the posts have been well received. Several comments, sharing memories, and commenting how good it is to see Meridian history. Anyways, I have been, in my personal opinion, I've been surprised and pleased with the very positive reaction and kind of nostalgia that people have seemed to enjoy.
That is excellent. Any comments, additions?
Just again, thank you. I know it takes time to do that type of stuff with everything else that you're juggling, so we appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Especially in this Rona vid world that we are operating in right now. It can be less efficient than we'd like. Next meeting, June 25th. I'm assuming it's going to be on Zoom again, Counselor?
At this point, probably, but I think we're still tracking the governor. As you may know, the governor did direct to move to stage 3 starting on Saturday. That will allow meetings, but the governor also has still suspended the open meeting requirements. So we're tracking that. The direction from the mayor's office was that we would keep the commissions as the same as the council. So as long as the council's still meeting remotely, the commission will meet remotely. Once the council's returned to in-person meetings, the commissions can return to in-person meetings. A lot of it's staffing, so part of it. So,
awesome sauce.
So don't know. I guess that's the long answer to don't know.
To be determined.
Yes.
Yeah. So Audrey will be reaching out to us to inform us where Chuckle Asses. Oops, sorry, will be. Anybody want to? I had to get one in. I know Blaine's going to watch this, and he's going to be like, "I can't trust that guy." Guy's smoking a cigar, eating Jelly Bellies the whole time. Anybody want to close this thing out?
Mr. Vice President,
Yes, Commissioner.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Second.
There's been a motion by Commissioner Alt to adjourn this meeting, a second by Commissioner Neri. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it passes. Everybody have a great week, month. If you got them, smoke them. So thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.